Hello, it's Monday, August the 3rd, 2020, and this is our mini Bible series. Welcome as we look at the lessons and readings for the upcoming Sunday, which is the 10th Sunday after Pentecost, August 9th, 2020. And today we look at, and I will reflect on the reading from the Old Testament, which is 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 9 through 18. And I will begin by reading for you the reading itself, beginning with the introduction to the reading. On Mount Horeb, where God had appeared to Moses with typical signs of God's presence, earthquake, wind, and fire, Elijah now experienced God in sheer silence. God assured Elijah that he is not the only faithful believer. 7,000 Israelites are still loyal. God instructed Elijah to anoint 2 men as kings and to anoint Elisha as his own successor. At Mount Horeb, the mount of God, Elijah came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Then the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king over Aram, and you shall anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king over Israel, and you shall anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, of Abel-Meholah, as prophet in your place. Whoever escapes from the sword of Hazael, Jehu shall kill, and whoever escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha shall kill. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed down to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." Here ends the reading. The backstory for this reading is that Elijah, who was noted as the greatest prophet of God and sometimes called the father of the prophets, follows God's instructions to tell King Ahab that he is sinning against God and leading God's people to also sin against God. King Ahab had married Jezebel, a Phoenician princess, which was taboo to marry outside of the Israelite people, and allowed her to introduce the worship of a foreign god, Baal, into the northern kingdom of Israel. A contest of sorts develops, in which God and Elijah are the winners. Many of the false prophets are killed. Jezebel threatens to have Elijah killed, and Elijah gets scared, and he runs for his life. Elijah travels 40 days and 40 nights, which in biblical numerology simply means a long time or a long distance. And in this case, it is saying Elijah traveled a long time, a long distance into the wilderness. And in this reading, God finds Elijah hiding in a cave. And I cannot fault Elijah. I can't find fault with him. I've never had to run for my life and hide in a cave because of one of my sermons. Most of the time I receive compliments, although sometimes I think the compliments are just polite talk, if you will. Or maybe nobody says anything at all, they just say, "Good morning, Pastor," as they're leaving. I have on occasions gotten pretty serious negative feedback. Perhaps I've even caused some people to leave whatever church that was that I offended. Although I never felt fear for my life. I never received death threats because of my sermon. In my own head, when God comes to Elijah hiding out in the cave, verse 9 sounds like, "Hey Elijah, what you doing here?" And now Elijah could have said, "Look, nobody ever said there would be death threats. And frankly, I'm scared half to death. This Jezebel, she's crazy. She's just mean enough to carry out her threats." Although, that's not what he said. In our modern vernacular, Elijah's answer sounds more like, "You know, God, I've always been your right-hand man. And I'm the one with the passion for your word. While the rest of your people, they're tearing down your altars, they're killing your prophets. It's just me, I'm standing alone. I'm the only one standing up for you. And now your people are trying to kill me too." Now in my head I can imagine a personified God tilting his head and saying, Maybe you all know this already. God cannot be fooled. Elijah's fear of Jezebel's threats caused him to sink deeper and deeper into the depths of unbelief, to such a degree that even a powerful demonstration of God on par with the revelation, the epiphany that Moses received on Mount Sinai does not move Elijah from unbelief to faith. Elijah's career comes to a somewhat anticlimactic and tragic end. Did you know you can be fired by God? Elijah got fired, plain and simple. Even after some very powerful demonstrations by God, wind splitting mountains and rocks, an earthquake, a fire, and then silence. It is during the silence that Elijah leaves the cave to speak to God. And Elijah again tries to puff himself up as the only faithful one left. I picture God just shaking his head. I wonder what might have happened if Elijah would have confessed that he got scared and he was filled with doubt and then asks for a second chance. And sadly, he did not. He stuck to that old story that God had already seen through the first time. So God tells Elijah, go back to where you came from. Go on back to Israel. Anoint Hazael as king over Aram. Anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king over Israel. And you shall anoint Elisha as prophet in your place. Elijah got fired with one last command to carry out. And God essentially says, By the way, Elijah, there's still 7,000 people in Israel who have not bowed down to a false god. Now, 7,000 is one of those numerical things again. 7, essentially, it's a complete number. So God is saying 7,000, there's a lot of people. There's a complete number of people who have not bowed down to the false god Baal. Not only did Elijah get fired, he also got fact-checked by God. Like I said earlier, God will not be fooled. So, does Elijah actually obey God in this last assignment? Yes and no. Elijah does find Elisha, and he anoints Elisha to be the prophet that replaces him, although he actually leaves the anointing of the kings up to Elisha. Despite the fact that we love a happy ending, this reading leaves us with a troubling and a tragic picture of the once great Elijah. Fearful, curved in on himself, faithless, ultimately disobedient to his call. Despite having to fire Elijah, God does still act compassionately. Yahweh gives Elijah a way out in the person of Elisha. The final assignments which Elijah were given are eventually accomplished, despite the resistance by Elijah, and that's because Yahweh is able to find another person, another more willing prophet, namely Elisha, who takes on the role that Elijah no longer wanted. God will not be fooled, and God will not be stopped, even if God has to find another person to carry on God's mission. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you got something good out of today's message, and I look forward to seeing you again the next time as we continue our journey this week on the way towards Sunday, the 10th Sunday after Pentecost, August 9th, 2020. Have a great day, and God bless.